So I'll bet money that you didn't expect me to go live on what today? It was today, Thursday? Nah, you didn't expect that. And that's okay because I decided to say, you know what? Let's just have some fun. And so that's what we're going to do today, right? We're going to, well, first of all, we're going to make sure that everybody can hear me because typically that seems to be like the most things that ever happen. But you know what? We're going to see what comes in. Usually what I have to do is go check and see my own posts to see that if it's showing up that I'm live. 9 times out of 10, never really does. But we're going to check it out because I think it's pretty fun. So let's see here. What we got? I like when you have to check your own stuff to see. Oh, there we are. Bam. Yep, it's working. Cool. All right. So we're just going to leave this on. Somebody might see it. Somebody might won't. Somebody won't, but you never really know. All right. So what's the purpose of today's event? Like, why am I here? What am I doing? Aside from like trying to figure out my own life with how I use technology and figure things out. So if you haven't seen anything that I've done, or you haven't really learned anything about Aerial Resupply Coffee, one of the things that I'm currently doing is raising money. So I'm raising money in the way of investments. It's, pretty much what's called a revenue share. In fact, why don't we go look at it? So I think I can share my screen, although I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do that. So we're going to play around while I'm doing this because I like to just add things as I go. So let's see here. How do I add somebody to the studio? No, that's not it. Oh, present. That would be the giant button right there. So let's go to share screen. And what I want to do is this. Awesome. So if I come back here, there we are. So I don't know if it's showing. Oh, it is showing. Cool. So as you can see right here, that I have effectively raised about $245,000 for ARC. And the reason why I'm bringing that up and the reason why I want to show everybody this is because this is actually a monumental feat to all of you, right? It would be one thing if it was just me, but it's not just me. It's all of you who have believed in what ARC is doing. And so really what this whole live thing that I'm doing, because I just want to have fun with it, is to showcase kind of where we are and what I've done, and then just have fun. And maybe the hammer will show up. I doubt it. But anyway, it's funny because I have all these people who, don't even know that this is what I'm doing. And it's hilarious. Like, so I just want to kind of see what happens from this. So, I mean, I'm recording it and it gives me a chance to be live, but it also gives me a chance to check out all my new equipment. I got my new microphone right here. I got, one of the things I wanted to show you guys, and of course the green screen's not going to work. Why would it work? Right. So I'm in the process of decorating all my stuff. I'm in the process of just kind of getting things together here at the store. And hopefully one day I'll actually, have this place up and running. It's been something of a unique and I would say frustrating challenge all at the same time. So, and, it's cool because as I'm doing this, the fun part about all this is that, like, on one hand, I want to do more of this, right? Like I want to do more pop-up events where people don't even know that this is what I'm doing, because then I'm able to just kind of ramble on like I'm doing right now, right? And I'm able to kind of talk through the different things that are important to me, the different things that I want to do, the different things that um, really speak to me. So like, well, like let's talk about everything that's in the queue that I've kind of committed to, or at least that I want to do. Right. So, number one, the two characters that I think everybody has kind of fallen in love with are Chris, former former Navy SEAL, and then the Hammer, old Buck, the Hammer Thomas, who is a unique character in and amongst himself. And so, I think what we've kind of seen from both of those characters, and why I like those characters a lot, is because it's people we've all run into. And while Chris is, I would say a little more on the, kind of the making fun of special forces guys. I've chosen Navy SEALs because it seems like that's all you see. For whatever reason, the Delta Force people and just regular SF really kind of shut up about it. Rangers are a little bit like SEALs in that they want to talk about it all the time. Um, but you never, like I said, you never really see um, anybody with a headline that says, former human resources Army Ranger. Doesn't really happen that way. It's either you're a SEAL or you're nothing in the special forces community from some of these things. And the really good, in my opinion, people who talk about it a little bit less are, eh, have a little bit more humility about it than the ones who just lead with that. And then old Buck the Hammer Thomas, right? So Buck, what can we say about Buck that hasn't been said about every single horrible, horrible toxic leader that we've ever met? And while I make fun of him and I like him a lot, I like that character. I think it's hilarious to be able to say, these are my experiences. This is what I've done. And this is what, um, I think is really kind of we can all kind of relate to. We can all kind of relate to that one character that for whatever reason has just stuck out in our lives because we've met that person in reality, and we see some of that craziness come through it. And I ran into a long time ago, I ran into a lieutenant colonel, not a full bird. I ran into a lieutenant colonel who was very much about the calf, and he was like, armored cavalry this, armored cavalry that. That's all he wanted to talk about. And he told me, he's like, Mike, I don't really care about logistics. You just need to give me my stuff so I can go off and do what I need to do. Everything else is unimportant. And what you do is unimportant so long as I have everything that I need. And I kind of took that to heart. And I've had some conversations with him. It wasn't actually in a unit, it was actually when I was in ACSC, which was the Air Command and Staff College. And he kind of set the stage, so to speak, from how I know all this. Um, and since I'm just talking to myself, I'm gonna pause here for a second. I'm gonna see if I can't like put this up and out on a post or something. So give me 1 second. Oh wait, so it is working. Hey, there we are. Never mind. I guess it's funny because as I'm looking at all this, all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, it did show up. So all right, well, so nobody's watching me. That's okay. I like doing my own things where nobody wants to pay attention, and that's fine. So let's recoup this. Let's end this here just because I was having fun, and we'll go from there. So look, 10 minutes of just Mike rambling because he's just trying to figure it out and figure out his own life and didn't tell anybody that he was going to do this. But look, if you want to invest with ARC, the raise is still open. You can go here to wefunder.com/aerial resupply. What that will do is it'll take you. Oh, wait, I do have viewers. Okay, cool. Never mind. It's funny because as I'm looking at the, none of you can see this and it's okay, but the studio that I'm on basically says 0 viewers. So apparently, forget this. What do I know? So, all right. Well, never mind then. We'll stay here and we'll have some fun. All right. So, Yeah. So we can talk. So I'll kind of go back to what I was saying before. So, all right. Wefunder, 250 grand raised. Well, 243. And the idea, well, so if you go to Area Resupply, if you go to this website, you'll see this right here. The terms are easy. They're rev share. What does that mean? So essentially, I'm going to double your money over 5 years. And if you invest, you can invest for as little as $100. You can actually invest as much as you want, provided you're either an accredited investor or you go to the Wefunder website and you show your tax documentation to prove otherwise to the Wefunder site, because this is a crowd fund, and you get your chance to be a part of what I'm doing here. And you get a chance to have your name in the annals of history as people who've helped to launch ARC, right? And that's not to say that I haven't. That's not to say that this isn't like a monumental effort on its own, but every bit, a little bit helps. The support from the community helps, and it's, a really cool way for people who have missed out on other opportunities for companies to be a part of something, especially at the ground level. So, it's one of those things where, I kind of look back at some of the times that I've had with companies that I've seen grow up, and been like, man, I really wish I could have been in at the very, very, very bottom level. And but I didn't know. And so if you don't know what WeFunder is this site. So like if you go backwards in time, I think everybody kind of has ever heard of Kickstarter, or some other crowdfunding engines. And those were for individuals, not businesses. If you wanted to do a business crowdfund, you technically weren't allowed to do it. And so if I remember correctly, in the guy who my guru, his name's Jeff Dion, the guy who really, really understands this extremely well from the historical standpoint, right around, I think, 2018, 2019, WeFunder came onto the scene to help businesses effectively crowdfund. So before then, you were only allowed to do, um, you know, series, or essentially venture capitalist type investments with accreditation, with accredited investors, and crowdfunding didn't exist. Well, WeFunder changed the game. And honestly, if you're ever interested in investing in any company, it doesn't have to be mine, but just any company at the crowdsourcing level, check out WeFunder. There are a ton of awesome companies on WeFunder in general. Now, shameless plug, check out ARC wherever it's showing up here, and see what I'm doing. If you haven't had a chance to really look at what I'm doing, or if you've ever seriously considered investing in another company, and then but you'll find things. And so for me, there's different perk levels. You'll see it all on the website. And for me, it's the benefit here is that it helps propel what we're doing here forward. A lot of the previous investments of people who've already committed to this has been utilized primarily for getting this facility up and operational. And that's something that I have, obviously has been a big, big challenge. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But it's closer than I had ever thought it would be before. And, I finally, have a pathway forward, and things are really moving in the ways that I think I wanted them to, that I had expected them to, and be ready by the first of the year. But, Murphy gets in the way of everything. And that's kind of what has happened with me in this thing. And as I'm staring off into the sky, not directly staring at the camera, I'm sure I'll get people who say, "Hey, Mike, why aren't you staring at the camera?" And the answer is because I don't like staring directly at a little dot. It makes me look like a serial killer. And that's not the intent here. The intent is to kind of be in a natural state instead of being like, "Hey, you, I see you." I do that enough with um, all of my stupid characters: Chris, the Hammer, Joe, um, whatever the girl's name was that I was going to attempt to do, but I've not rekindled. I don't even remember what I was going to name her. And so staring into a camera like this and just looking at a little dot might be cool, but it's not what I like to do, I guess. Sorry. All right. So where are we? What's the status of the store, right? I think that's kind of the biggest question that everybody's, at least that I've been asked. And yeah, exactly. How dare I be myself, right? So I think the status of the store and where we are now is, so I'm still waiting on my roaster to be installed. So if you remember, or if you've seen any of my stuff, or if you've never seen it, um, I I bought my production roaster about 2 months ago, and I actually had it shipped to me about 2 months ago, and it's been sitting here as a giant paperweight, um, because like I have the gas lines run, electricals all run. But, of course, when you have effectively a gas oven, because that's what major production roasters are, you have to vent it. And so I ran into some snags. I had a contractor walk out on me because he took one look at it, didn't really understand what he was doing, uh, even though that's what he told me he was doing, and then just walked away. And so I kind of had to eat crow, figure some things out, talk to the city, figure out exactly what building permits needed to be accomplished. My roaster, the actual manufacturer for the roaster, Mill City, who is a phenomenal company. If you guys ever want to take a look at kind of what they do, but Mill City Roasters came to bat for me on kind of the technical details of what I need to do to be able to get this roaster up and operational. And so they interfaced with the city, and that kind of linkage propelled everything forward. So fingers crossed, the roaster will be installed by the end of the month, and then we'll be really kind of in business. And this whole thing will light up, and you guys will see a lot more. For now, I'm kind of keeping everything in the dark because there's really not much to see. I mean, if you've seen some of my videos, you've seen some stuff in the background, but it's kind of a little bit of a what you would expect, a brand new facility or a brand new store to kind of get up and running. So a little bit of chaos, but for the most part, it's fairly empty until it's becomes a living and breathing business. For now, it's just it exists. So that's going to happen. Like I said, by the end of the month, hopefully by the beginning of the month, we are full up and roasting and going into production, and then training wheels are off, and this thing is rolling. And originally I don't tend to do anything half-assed, but originally I was going to just do what I did when I started my company, which was just announce that I'm open and say that's it. But I think what I'm going to do is probably do a soft opening, get everything running into the probably February, March, April, and then I think probably have a grand opening or at least a kickoff for this somewhere around Memorial Day. I think that's probably a good lead in, and get some systems running underneath me, and get some ideas about what I need to do to keep this thing fully functional before I really push forward. So that's about where we sit with the facility, which is cool, right? I mean, I think that I've really enjoyed building. So, like, you know, things I've never really talked about, right? So, back when I was back in my wee lieutenant years, when I was just a young lieutenant, a young lad in the 4th Brigade Support Battalion for 1st Brigade, 4th Infantry Division, which, if you're not familiar with that division, don't worry, it's easily forgettable. I know everybody in their Army experience says that whatever division they were in is the worst division they've ever been in. 4ID is pretty up there. Let's just put it that way. But one of my experiences was building FOBs, building forward operating bases in Afghanistan, which is kind of like the Wild West, right? Where you get kind of anything goes. I mean, there's rules and stuff, and there's only rules to keep you from doing certain things, but there's a lot of gray area for you to be able to do a lot of other stuff. And so I was kind of put in charge of building FOBs and building places, even as a supply officer. I was not the engineer, but I ended up becoming the brigade engineer by default because the other person who was an actual engineer was a lieutenant who didn't understand how to supply anything. And so because of that, and I guess just by my very nature, I was like, hey, I'm just going to go do this. So I took that same attitude of how do I build things out in the future, and um, and how do I build things from scratch to what I'm doing here. And honestly, this is way more fun than I've ever had with corporate America or anything along those lines, because I get to do what I want and I can build what I want and I can do it in a way that makes me happy and makes other people happy and have fun and really push forward kind of the message and the vision that I want to do. So, um, one of the things I wanted to do, let me do this while I'm thinking about, oh, my mouse died. Where is it? Oh, here we are. Let me go to the banner. Where is this? All right, there we are. Sorry, I went silent there for a second. Just trying to get there we are, back to running. So look, I'm going to leave this up because, like I can talk for a long time. I can make videos, but like I also wanted to be able to have just kind of a pop-up thing where it's more like a conversation, because I don't really ever talk. Like, trust me, I talk to a lot of people, but I don't ever really talk to, I've never really had conversations like this where it's, you essentially do AMAs. Like, one thing I've never really focused on is this idea of live events, this idea of, um, doing things in this way. It's usually always just kind of been, um, it's been more or less, you know, scripted or unscripted, uncrafted kind of, TikTok videos where I bust out the hammer, I bust out the, I bust out Chris, Joe is somewhere around here, and I probably need to break out the female character that I have, because quite honestly, I need to break something. I need to bring in some new things and then figure out what I want to do and have fun with it. I think a lot of people, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where, you think that at least it has an audience, right? Like, I like the fact that the characters that I've created resonate with people, even in stupidity, they resonate with people, predominantly because it allows, I think, all of us to laugh at some of the very hard situations that we were a part of. I know it did for me. Um, I've had numerous experiences with people who I think probably should have decided for themselves that leadership wasn't something that they wanted to do. But, the army, in the military, for example, is, it's an up or out organization, regardless of whether or not you believe it is, or whether or not there's laws that make you do that. And so by the very nature, people are kind of forced into leadership positions who should have never been put in that position to begin with. And, some of the characters that I'm creating are, you know, I guess a way of expressing some of the things that I've dealt with my entire life, in the army, or just people who I've had the unfortunate timing to be either a subordinate to them, a peer to them, or just in the same general area when something's happened. Like, I can't, like, some things that have happened, like I don't even know how to show because I don't have another cameraman. Like, it's just me, right? So it's just me holding, it's me with my phone holding the camera, doing what I need to do, but I don't have somebody else. So, like, I'm kind of limited by arm's reach for the lens of the camera. But, some of the stories that I've had to deal with, and some of the things I've seen is, I've watched my battalion commander and my battalion command sergeant major get into a fist fight in front of the formation, which was a fun and unique experience for all involved. You never really expect two people who are leading the organization to start fighting in that way, but it happened, and that's one of those things. I've watched my battalion commander punch a contractor in the face after disagreeing wholeheartedly with what they said. I've watched same individual treat other lieutenants and other people of the opposite sex in ways that they probably shouldn't have done. Well, not probably, they should not have done. And some of those things I don't want to bring into the hammer and bring into Chris because I'm trying to keep it positive and funny, or at least over the top stupid. But it does lend to the character that, and lend to the people that have kind of done this in the past, or at least that I've had the unique experience of seeing, which is, it's one of those things. It's a thing that I think you kind of see, like I said, you see it in all these different people. So, but yeah, I think I'm starting to run a little bit out of steam in terms of how much I can talk in an hour without talking to somebody else. What I need, and I'm starting to realize this. So I want to do a podcast. I really do want to do a podcast. I don't have a structure. I didn't have a structure for this one. I just decided, hey, whatever. I'm just going to flip a switch, turn it on, and say, let's go. And that's what I did. In the future, I'm probably going to do structured stuff, kind of like JG Wentworth. I'll have a structured settlement, or, if I had a structured settlement, I'll need cash now. But I'll have a structure for a podcast about what I want to talk about, how I want to go about it. I don't think it'll be the hammer, only because like the filters that I use for the hammer and for Chris and for everybody else don't show up on like this. Like this is not going to be able to bring it in, but there's ways to do it that I think I can make it work. So we'll see. But I do want to do a podcast. I think that would be a good thing to get out there. I also want to continue with the cavalry charge. I think the hammer has a lot of things to say about current events. In fact, that's one of the things that after this, I'm going to be working on. So if that's something that, you're looking for, I'm sure it'll be out there. And then, yeah. All right. So what we got? A podcast is a good idea. What ideas are I thinking discussion wise? All right. So I've always kind of had this idea of, so like back when I started the company, I kind of had this idea of, talking about a little bit about military history, a little bit about, logistics, because that's kind of my background. I'm kind of a logistics homer. And then just kind of talking about business in general and kind of tying the three things together. It's funny because you listen to, all these different podcasts that are out there and they just like super niche, but the podcasts that I kind of like, and maybe this is just me, is I like the ones that are kind of this open podcast. Like, I mean, Joe Rogan and those ones are really kind of interesting because you never, I mean, if you like Joe, you like Joe. If you don't like him, that's whatever you want to do. It's hit or miss for me, but I like the format of, you have a guest, you have somebody, and you're not just sitting there and it's not just, talking 1,000% about whatever that individual topic is. And I think, coffee is great, but I don't want to sit here and talk about, the origins of coffee or coffee beans or how I'm roasting or, what I'm doing. Like, I don't want to do that. Right. Like it's kind of like, the hammer is a one-dimensional character that only wants to talk about the hammer. Like, I don't want to do that in a podcast. I want, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that through the hammer with the cavalry charge. And then I'm just going to let him do that and I'll niche it with that regard. And, but when it comes to like a discussion or a podcast or something like that, like there's a lot of interesting people out there who have like some really cool stories that I think people never really want to, or they never learn from anybody else, or they're never engaged in something like this because, I mean, the major podcast players are looking for very specific people. And running a podcast is hard. I'm not saying I'm doing this all the time, but I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. Maybe it'll be this. Maybe it'll be, I'll find people who want to pop onto something in a pop-up moment for, half an hour and just crank something out. So I don't know. We'll see. But that was kind of my original idea, and my idea of where I wanted something like this to go. But hey, so we'll see. Like I said, I got some time to kill here this afternoon before I have to go do a couple other things. So I think I'm going to crank out a cavalry charge because the hammer found some cool things to talk about. And then, so we'll see if we can't pop one out of there. So thanks for everybody who's come by and who's had a chance to listen to me. I'd say, ramble for 30 minutes. Like I said, if you want to take a look at Aerial Resupply Coffee on Wefunder, please do. I would say if you're open to it, check out my YouTube page, Aerial Resupply Coffee. I'm always looking for subscribers because it helps me. Right now, I think I'm at 356, but if I can get to 1,000, then I have the ability to add my store to YouTube, which does a lot of other things. So if you feel like you want to do that, please. And then the last thing I would say is, go on Google Maps and find ARC on Google Maps and leave a review. If you've had a chance to try Aerial Resupply Coffee, leave a review. It helps. It helps push the brand forward. It'll take 3 minutes of your time, and it helps me tremendously. I really appreciate that. So thanks everybody again. And this was fun. Next time I'll actually let people know I'm going to do it instead of just throwing it out there. And yeah, so stay caffeinated. And as the hammer would say, this is the hammer out.